I was in the 4th grade, which would have made me around 10 years old at the time, and I still clearly recall the most dreadful night of my life. Halloween night had come. I went trick-or-treating with my older cousins, aunts, and uncles, as well as some of my younger cousins, with whom, to be honest, I wasn't close. I was nevertheless still ecstatic. Who among children doesn't adore Halloween? I recall receiving enough candy to last the entire year till the next Halloween. For the majority of years, the neighborhood was busy. I was in a really large and foreign environment. I spent the evening at my cousin's place while my parents were away till my mother was meant to pick me up for school the next morning. For the first hour, everything was enjoyable, but I found it difficult to blend in with the other children. Even though I constantly felt alone, at least I was receiving loads of candy. We were in one of the affluent areas of the city, and it appeared like each home would give each trick-or-treater a sizable quantity of candy. We rapidly filled up our bags, and before we knew it, it was almost time to return to the house. I became distracted at one point by a man across the street. He was persistently focusing his gaze on our group as if he had a bird's-eye view of me. Or did I catch his attention when my Aunt Julie grabbed my shoulder and informed me it was time to leave? I immediately came to my senses. I continued and ignored the man I had just seen. "What do you want to do tonight?" I inquired of my cousins. Anna responded, "We're not doing anything with you, weirdo," and they all started laughing at me. It's too bad my aunt and uncle couldn't hear what they were saying to me because they definitely would have defended me. Anyway, I was feeling depressed, so I kept quiet the rest of the way home as we slowly followed them. I was angry with them for how they were treating me and the fact that they didn't want to hang out with me. Soon after, I ran into that spooky man again, this time without a costume and alone himself. A thin, elderly, and exceedingly tall-looking man. This time, he was much closer, and I could see him much better. I froze in place as he came toward me. He was moving quickly toward us when he abruptly stopped again in the middle of the road, roughly midway. Even my group noticed him, so they turned around to see whether I was still there. They probably thought it was a joke, but I sensed trouble. For God's sake, the man had a very unsettling appearance. Although it was Halloween, he didn't even need to wear a costume to look eerily menacing, without even needing one. The fact that a car nearly collided with him before starting to shout and curse at the man because he wouldn't move is equally absurd. That focused the man's attention on the driver, which provided us enough time to flee the scene, while everyone else slept in their beds. I kept thinking about him while I watched movies, ate popcorn, engaged in lively conversation, and gossiped. I did not have a genuine blanket or pillow, so I spent the night in the living room. I was unable to even locate the TV remotes. There were just the three of us. The fact that I was unable to sleep made everything worse, which made the night drag on. The chirping crickets and roaring winds persisted. I eventually lost it and had a meltdown. I hit the couch repeatedly while simultaneously screaming as loud as I could and burying my face in the pillow. Treating that couch the way my buddies had been treating me all night felt terrific. I finally got myself together and began to listen. I could hear everyone laughing upstairs. Still, I had so much unreleased rage that it kept me up all night. But I was aware that my only option was to hold on. I laid there for another hour while attempting to fall asleep, and ultimately got up briefly to get some water and stretch. But as I poured water into my glass, something unexpected occurred. I swear I caught a glimpse of something outside, out of the corner of my eye. I started to feel strange, but it seemed to go away, or I was simply hallucinating. I returned to the couch to lie down, but I was unable to shake the thought. I ignored it because there was a scarecrow there when I last looked. After all, it was merely a Halloween decoration. As the minutes passed, just as I was ready to fall asleep for good, I heard someone tapping on the sliding glass door. Now that I was terrified, I knew it wasn't my imagination. I was unable to see anything by the time I cautiously approached the door. Outside, it was far too dark. I foolishly opened the door and turned on the patio light, but there was still nothing unusual. But I waited till I overheard someone pleading for assistance. In the shadows, it was coming from just across from me. After a brief moment of hesitation, the person asked for aid again, and I became concerned. As soon as I went outside, someone on my right grabbed my arm and began tugging me away. He attempted to put his finger over my mouth, but I bit it as hard as I could. When I was finally able to scream, he struck me in the head with his bare fist, nearly knocking me unconscious. When I noticed another person approaching us from a distance, I was able to continue shouting for assistance. It was in the same location as when I heard a call for assistance. This whole thing was staged. It was a deception. My heart was under attack, and I was having some of the worst adrenaline rushes, feeling as though my heart might physically beat out of my chest. It was the same man I had seen earlier that evening, only this time he had a companion. They preyed on my innocence, anticipating that I would attempt to assist someone in need, and sure enough, they were correct. When I was just 10, they were aware that I lacked knowledge. They both attempted to take me away, but fortunately, my uncle came out with a shotgun and scared them off. He escorted me inside as I dialed 911. One of the males fit our description perfectly, but the other was hidden by a mask, so we were out of luck. Unfortunately, none of them were ever apprehended by the police, and that was the end of the matter. Just the presence of my uncle makes me happy. I probably would have vanished without a trace if he hadn't been getting up in the middle of the night to fetch water. When he went downstairs to use the restroom and get a midnight snack, that's when he first heard me screaming. Exactly coincidental. It's also absurd because I haven't seen any of my uncles or cousins since that evening. After that episode, I kind of took my father at his word and avoided that side of the family because he no longer had a lot of affection for them. Not to mention that I nearly became a kidnap victim, which affected me for a very long time. Those individuals are probably still at large, abusing other children the same way they abused me. Although I sincerely hope not. What can we do? I was 16 years old, and it was Halloween night. Since I wasn't feeling well, I didn't want to leave the house. Although I think I was upset as well as my buddies. It wasn't a major deal. Anyway, I usually just participated in activities like Halloween to leave the house or just to have fun with my pals. Since candy just causes cavities and low blood sugar, I never truly enjoyed it. I made the most of the chance to unwind and have a good time alone in my room while FaceTiming my fiancée. I popped some popcorn and started watching some Netflix before calling it a night. With that, I was content. I enjoyed my free time whenever I wasn't at work or attending classes. We had a sizable home out in the country. Although it's not like the sticks, to me it feels like the country. Even though it's close to the city center, the area has a somewhat rural feel to it. There are dirt roads, houses that are far apart, cornfields, farms, and other such things. When I heard a tap on my window, I was there unwinding. I was terrified until I looked outside and found nobody there. I should have known better. My buddies had to be playing a practical joke on me. I informed the specific person who I felt would be stupid enough to do such a thing to leave me alone in a text message. I received no text reply, but 5 minutes later, I once more heard a knock. I took another glance outside, but this time all I saw was a deserted backyard. This time, I called my friend till he eventually picked up, which took around 3 calls. He was starting to irritate me, so I told him to piss off. He pretended to be stupid and illiterate, but I could see he was only playing a trick on me. After hearing him sound serious for a while, I began to believe him. He even FaceTimed me to show that he was still trick-or-treating with our pals and far away from my house. My heart kind of sank at that point. I hung up the phone out of caution and walked to my parents' room to inform them of the situation. When my dad and I went to investigate, just as he was certain we were safe, he said, "See, bud, nothing to worry about. You're just imagining things." It was bizarre because not 5 seconds later, we heard a big smash from behind us in the dining room, which was the window breaking. Despite his warnings, I followed my father as he picked up a rifle. The invader was nowhere to be located despite our best efforts to search everywhere outside. My father asked me to stop talking, but I couldn't help but panic. "Dad, look that way." He ran by our shed. I watched him do it. He was present when we cautiously made our way there. This enormous man was carrying a crowbar. My father yelled at this man for a few minutes, demanding that he kneel and submit, but the man remained motionless and silent. It was even more unsettling since, like Jason, he was sporting this eerie hockey mask. When he finally came at us, my father fired at his knee, forcing the attacker to scream in agony. He attempted to flee, but he was unable to move. We stayed with him until the police arrived, which took a long and agonizing 10 minutes, and watched as he tried to stop the bleeding by taking off his shirt and wrapping it over his leg. We had no idea who the man was or what he wanted when the police removed his mask. He seemed to be simply a freak out for a good scare on Halloween. Who knows, he might have even tried to kill us or rob us. I think he's a psychopath. When this case reached court, he was accused of several. I'll have to ask my dad, but I'm quite sure he's in jail right now. Imagine that I've been holding on to this tale for a full year because it happened on Halloween. I'm Janie, and the incident that inspired this tale happened to my friend Alex and me on Halloween. We didn't go trick-or-treating. Instead, we simply strolled through the city and partied at a few bars a few hours before everyone else started to emerge. Along with exploring several neighborhoods, we simply spoke while having fun. We dressed up. Alex dressed as a mermaid witch thing and I was a cat, her words, not mine. We were having a great time until a guy wouldn't leave me alone. We accidentally ran into each other, and as is customary for guys, he naturally wanted to stay and talk thereafter. He was a Chad, and I had zero interest in him. He still followed me though. Even though I told him to leave us alone at least 5 times, it took us around 10 minutes for him to stop ranting to us. He slightly dampened my mood, but ultimately, we found our groove and came up with a brilliant concept. In the neighborhood where we were, we reached a dead end, and just beyond it, it appeared that a trail went directly into the woods. We grinned and exchanged looks as if we could read each other's minds. About 10 minutes into our stroll over the route, we came across a camp or hangout area that had been abandoned. The area was littered with discarded beer bottles, a homemade hammock, a picnic table, a fire pit, and some lawn chairs. Alex had a joint we could smoke, and I pulled my bottle out of my purse so we could both have a couple of shots. We alternated playing our favorite songs while still talking about odd topics because I recalled that I had a Bluetooth speaker in my purse. Even though we were having a blast, the time passed and we realized we had been there for more than an hour before deciding it was time to leave. It was becoming late, and 90 of the trick-or-treaters would have finished in the next 30 minutes, according to estimates. We used that time to calm down and collect ourselves before I had to securely drive us home. We managed to walk a lot farther than we anticipated from our car after parking at a nearby CVS. We suddenly wished for the warmth of the car as it became chilly and windy outside. We didn't converse as much because the booze was starting to wear off. We were freezing, and we were simply eager to get home after a long day and night. I abruptly stopped in my tracks as we approached the parking lot. The individual from earlier. "Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me," exclaimed Alex. That guy from earlier that wouldn't leave us alone. Shocked, Alex inquired. He was just sitting on the hood of my car, staring at us. After yelling at him to get out of the car, we threatened to contact the police if he persisted in refusing to do so. The strangest part was that I had no idea how he even knew which automobile belonged to me. But because my father is a police officer, I warned the creep that if he didn't leave immediately, he would be arrested in a matter of minutes. He was behaving strangely and didn't appear to care about the danger for some reason. He didn't think my father was a police officer, a real sociopath. He was ignoring our requests for privacy and acting in a very degrading and disturbing manner. I had had enough of this guy, so I called my father, who arrived with a fellow decent cop in less than 5 minutes. The creeper was having a fit the entire 5 minutes. We were waiting for my dad. For some reason, he kept calling me Kylie. He thought he knew me from school and that I had tried to give him a false identity, which is untrue. He had to be using medications. He began menacingly stating things like, "You're going to regret this one day," and other extremely bizarre things that make me queasy to think about at the moment. Even more disturbingly, he made certain advances that he probably still gets away with today. But when my dad arrived, he received a slap in the face. He was detained for attempting to elude the police, harassing my companion and me, being intoxicated in public, attempting to bribe an officer, and having marijuana and some stupid pills in his possession. The guy was complete, and he received his just desserts.